So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Heather Bailey. I am the tourism coordinator with Red River North Tourism. And today for our showcase, I have with me Sandra Pruden. Sandra, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you very much. Thank you very much for agreeing to join us here. Our We first became aware of you when we saw you on CBC, I think it was. Was it CBC? Yet we're on the evening news.
It was, yep.
It was, yes. And so you actually took a very interesting vacation. And I understand from previously talking with you that it wasn't just a small 2-week vacation, that it was kind of an amalgamation over a long period of time. So I'm going to ask you to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us about your statue vacation.
Okay, well, I live in Petersfield and I'm very involved with the town and I love my small town life and small towns in general. So one day my friend and I, we were at the Mallard Park, that's what we call it, where our Mallard statue is located in Petersfield, and we took a selfie. And so I said to her, wouldn't it be fun to see all the statues in Manitoba and take selfies in front of them? So we went online and we found a list and we bought a map and pinned it on the map. And then we decided to see where the clusters were, and we would take little day trips or overnight trips and things like that. So it started with the Petersfield Mallard, of course. And then our first trip was a trip through the Interlake. And that was a day trip. And this was in 2015. And we just finished in the fall of 2020. So it took us 5 years. And we saw approximately 64, 65 statues.
Oh, good Lord. That's a lot of them. Oh, okay. So how about if you share with us what the most interesting one was?
Sure. There was a lot of very interesting ones. My friend Jackie, her main one she wanted to see was the Happy Rock in Gladstone because she had heard about it, read about it, and she wanted to see it because she loves words and plays on words. And it's Gladstone, Happy Rock. So that was her highlights. Of course, for both of us, the Mallard. And there was one in Dominion City. When we were driving, we saw it and it looked like such a small statue. But then when we got to it and read about it, it was actually a true to life size statue of a sturgeon
Oh,
that was pulled out of the Roseau River in 1903. And it was it was pulled out of the river because it was almost dead. And then at the time they put it in the back of a truck, in the bed of a truck, and a bunch of men had to walk behind the truck to carry the tail end of the fish. So that was a very interesting statue. And the statues are all so nice and they're also interesting and they tell a tale, and they're all in small towns. We didn't go, Winnipeg has lots of statues. We didn't go into the city type of statues. And it was really fun because we drive into the town and we drive around looking for the statue rather than just asking for it. And that way we get to see that small town. Once in a while, we have to ask for directions, but for the most part, we can generally find them. And then we take a selfie and we post it on Facebook and we carry on.
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the farthest one that you went out to?
Well, this past fall in September, we went and took a 4-day trip up north. So the farthest was Thompson, Swan River, that area, Flin Flon. Um, we didn't go to Churchill because it wasn't listed on our list. The list we took off the internet is not an official list, and we actually added to it. But it had quite a few statues on it. So I think Swan River in Thompson, Cranberry Portage, that would be the farthest that we went north.
What was the strangest statue that you happened to see?
Oh my goodness, the strangest. Well, that's a good question because there's so many statues. There was a statue of snakes in Inwood. So not so strange, but kind of creepy for some people. Um, there was in Clandeboy, there's a big chair by the side of the road, and that was classified as one of the statues. There was a tobacco pipe in St. Claude, and we couldn't quite figure out why it was a tobacco pipe, but that was strange but neat.
Mhm. Now, do each of the statues have like, is there like a plaque that tells the story, or it's just like there's just the statue out there and away you go?
Well, most of them do have a plaque that tell the story. Some of them don't. They just have the date or whatever. But when there's a story on it, it's very interesting. Things you don't know. Like there was a spinning wheel in Sifton, and it was in honor of the man that invented Mary Maxim. Do you
Oh,
remember the Mary Maxim patterns or whatever?
yeah.
And that was in honor of him. So you really learn a lot as you're going because there's little write ups on a lot of them. Not all of them, of course, but yeah.
Oh, wow. And the biggest statue that you saw?
Well, a lot of them were very big. I would say that the banana in Melita was very quite tall. Same with the miner in Thompson, it was very tall as well. Yeah. And the other thing about taking these trips is that we don't just see statues.
Right.
We get to stop at points of interest. I did not know until just this last fall that there's a place called Magnet Hill in Manitoba.
Oh,
And if you've ever been to a magnetic hill, apparently there's a dozen of them in across Canada. I was at one in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick, sorry, and found it fascinating. And I was so surprised to learn that we had one in Manitoba.
yeah.
It was hard to find, but we found it and it was really, really cool.
Oh, wow. And
Mhm.
so maybe explain to us what a magnet hill is actually.
Well, it's actually an optical illusion, but
Oh,
it doesn't seem like it when you're in the moment. You drive to the bottom of a hill and then you put your car in neutral and you get dragged up the hill, or so it seems. But it's all an optical illusion. And actually, you're going downhill, but it seems that you're going uphill.
uh,
And you cannot tell the difference unless you actually physically get out of the car
huh,
and have a look around. And then you see, okay, this is how it works. But it's amazing.
huh. I
Yeah.
bet you met a lot of interesting people too. Like it's an opportunity to meet the some of the local people in the towns that you visited and get the nice small town feel of everybody that's around.
We really did. And, we're not afraid to talk to strangers. So at statues, people would come and offer to take our picture, or they would come along and talk to us. When we were in Dominion City, this old guy in a truck, he just came along wondering what we were doing and talked to us. We told him where we were from. And of course, it's a small world. He had been in Petersfield back in the 20s or 30s and knew some people, threw up some names that we knew. Anytime we stopped for meals or staying the night, we end up talking to people and find out a little bit about their town and tell them a little bit about ourselves. And it's fun too because now we're kind of experts on small town Manitoba. And when people tell us where they're from, we say, oh, yes, that's the home of whatever. Somebody asked me about Altona the other day, how far it was from Selkirk. And I said, well, let's see, that's the home of Van Gogh's sunflowers. And it took us about 2 hours. And then I looked it up on Google and it was an hour and 50 minutes. So
Oh my gosh, yeah.
pretty close.
Very good. Very good. Van Gogh sunflowers. Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, as you went along, you're saying you stopped for meals and that, so you probably had an opportunity to visit lots of really nice local restaurants, and your trip was obviously started off as doing statues, but it probably ended up being much, much more than that.
Well, it was a real, bonding experience for me and my friend, Jackie, because when you spend a lot of time in the car together, you talk about a lot of stuff. We really didn't play the radio a lot. We talked and we saw the sights, and then getting to meet people along the way. Brief meetings, but meetings and information and lots of interesting stories about the towns and things like that.
So share with us one of the, it doesn't have to be necessarily about a statue or whatever, but your takeaway. What was some of the really high points of your trip that you encountered along your way?
Well, I love to drive and I love to see the scenery. Manitoba is beautiful and the people are beautiful. The scenery up north is so untouched and it's so unbusy. Well, of course, because of COVID, it's not very busy anywhere, but it's green and the lakes are so beautiful and I love meeting all the people and finding the people so friendly Manitoba. It really is friendly Manitoba. Everywhere we went, we never had anybody giving us a hard time or anything like that. They were always wanting to help us. There was one place we went in St. Malo. Um, the statue was down, and because they were moving it. And so they were trying very hard to get us to the machine shed where it was being held, but we couldn't find it. We ended up going back last year.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Um, and just any, like, if someone else wanted to go out and do a similar trip, what would you suggest for them to, obviously you planned it, you mapped it, you did whatever, it wasn't just, oh, let's go here. So obviously there was a fair amount of planning that went into your trips.
Well, there was a bit. We had our initial list and we looked at it on the map and saw the clusters. I would just say look at kind of where the clusters are and and just go and drive and enjoy the trip. It's a great trip. And actually, right outside of Winnipeg is the center of Canada as well. So we're right in the middle of Canada here in Manitoba, and there's a monument. It's not a statue; it's a monument, and that's a great spot to stop as well. Like it's not just statues, and I would say don't just focus on the statues. Have a look at the scenery, meet the people, take your time, not rushing through it. We did see a lot. There was one trip in southwestern Manitoba. There's a lot of statues, and we saw 23 statues in 3 days.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it was not rushed. It was a nice pace. And I would say don't rush through it. You want to enjoy it
Hmm.
because it is a lot of fun.
Good, good, excellent, excellent. So now you went out and you visited all of the small towns in Manitoba, and you are actually from a small town in Manitoba, Petersfield, as you said at the original, at the beginning of the interview. And I asked you in discussion on this interview that I have been to Petersfield and I love it. It's a beautiful little town. And I also wanted you to explain to our viewers where Petersfield is and to just share your small town with them. So it's nice to go out, but it's always nice to go home as well. So just tell us a little bit about Petersfield and what it is and where it is and what we can see there if we came to visit in the summertime or maybe the winter. I don't know. And just share with us a little bit about Petersfield.
Well, I'm very proud of Petersfield. I'm the self proclaimed Queen of Petersfield because I've lived there for over 50 years And I've been involved in all aspects of volunteering for the town with the community club and one of the churches and the curling club. So Petersfield is about 15 minutes north of Selkirk, and it's on the way to Winnipeg Beach and Gimli and Hecla, all those places where the people like to head out to the lake. We don't have a lake, but we have many creeks. There are a few creeks, and they all kind of blend into each other. And then they all lead out to the river and the lake. So you can get to, say, Winnipeg Beach or Gimli by boat from Petersfield. It doesn't have to be a car trip or a skidoo in the wintertime. Our creeks are very busy in the summer and the winter. And this winter, especially with COVID, people haven't been going anywhere. So um, local community members have been keeping up skating paths, and they're out there cross country skiing and they're skidooing, and lots of ice fishing shacks. And so there's the creeks, the waters. We also have one of the nicest curling rinks in Manitoba, I'm sure. It was actually featured on one of the news stations a few years ago as because it's such a nice curling club. And we've had some world champions coming out of that curling club as well. So we're pretty proud of it. And our hall is kept up by a board of volunteers. And we have some really great volunteers that do a lot of work for us. And we try to have events. We have an annual seniors dinner that fills the hall. We usually have about 250 to 300 seniors. Well, not 300, about 250 that come out for dinner, and we serve them a dinner. And it's kind of like a reunion for them because it's not just seniors that live in Petersfield, it's seniors that have lived in Petersfield, that do live in Petersfield. So it's both. And it's a really nice night. Um, in the summertime, we have at the Mallard Park, that's what we call it. It's not officially named the Mallard Park, but that's what everybody calls it, where the Mallard statue sits on the highway. We have a summer market there on the weekends, and lots of very interesting vendors. There's the homemade vendors, and there's also the like Tupperware type of vendors too. And that's a real hit. It's very popular, and it's a great spot for it because it's right on the highway going to the beach. And we've been expanding different things. Last year, a couple of times we had what was called a story walk, where we had a book broken down into different, like all the pages were ripped out of the book and laminated. And then we put them on stakes and put them throughout the park. So you walked through the park, read the story, but the story was interactive. So you had to do things and say things with your children while you were doing the walk. And that was a big hit. We did it in the Mallard Park, and we also did it in the baseball park. Right by our hall, we have a big baseball park with two baseball diamonds and a great playground. And so we have our annual sports day events, which we didn't have last year and probably won't have this year because it's a lot of people. It's a ball tournament, and there's games and races for the kids and things like that. We also have some really nice soccer fields too by the curling club. We have a lot of donated land at the curling club, so we have room for expansion and things. So we've expanded with the soccer fields and that. And we work with the Clandeboye District Rec Association, and we work together. So they have their soccer fields at Petersfield, and together we keep them mowed along with our um, baseball fields and things like that in the Mallard Park. There's also a show and shine every year at the Mallard Park.
Right, yeah.
And and some of the churches like to have outdoor services like an annual, just once a year. And one year, there's two of the churches, the local ones that have these services. And one year they combined them and had it together. It was quite lovely. And we have two campgrounds. One is, well, they're both have a lot of seasonal spots in them, um, but they're very popular. And, it used to be that there was a lot of cottages along the creek, but people love it out here so much that they became year-round homes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, because really, it's not a far commute to go to Winnipeg or to Selkirk or Gimli or wherever you're working. It's maybe an hour at the most. So it's a really nice place to live. Really friendly people. We've got everything you need. We've got a store and a hotel and garage and recreational facilities like the curling club and the hall.
So you had mentioned the show and shine and the story walk and that. So if people were interested in doing that in the park, do they register for it? Do they go to, does Petersfield have a website that they can go or a Facebook page or?
There's a couple of Petersfield Facebook pages. There's a Facebook page called Petersfield Manitoba that's run by a couple of volunteer community members, and also there's a Facebook page called Petersfield Hall, or Petersfield Community Hall. So there's those places for information, and we have fundraisers too sometimes. Like we had a poinsettia fundraiser in the before Christmas, and that went over quite well. We're going to have another spring fundraiser with the Plants Plus greenhouse. Plants Plus is a greenhouse in Petersfield, and it's very large and very popular. And we have people from, I'm sure, all over Manitoba come out to Plants Plus to get their plants in the summertime or in the spring, I guess.
Okay, well, that's awesome. So people could check out the Facebook page. They could come out for different things, and it's always good in this environment of COVID to make sure that you check and register, because I'm sure everything that used to be really popular and very widespread and had lots and lots and lots of people that were able to come, of course, have been restricted due to COVID. So it's best to check and make sure if anybody wanted to come out and do cross country skiing or do snowshoeing or anything, could they just come out to the Mallard Park and do their outdoor activities through there?
There are groomed cross country ski trails on the creek. And I can't remember the name of the cross country ski group, but it's a group that operates out of Winnipeg Beach and Gimli and now Petersfield. And they keep them groomed. And there is a membership for that. Um, but as far as snowshoeing, people can snowshoe anywhere through the park, on the creeks, and things like that. There's a lot of places. There's also information I didn't mention in the RM of St. Andrews. So at the RM office, they have a website, and they also have, people can phone for information um, on things like that.
Excellent. Good.
Hmm.
Great. That's super informative. Yeah, like I said, I had spent a little bit of time in Petersfield and I just love it. It's just a beautiful little town and I think it's worth the drive for people to come out and see it, whether it be winter or summer, and just spend some time out there exploring. So, and maybe starting their own statue vacation and having a selfie taken at the Mallard.
Oh, absolutely. Very often I drive past the Mallard and I see people out there taking selfies because it is a beautiful statue.
Yeah. Excellent. Great. Okay, well, is there anything else that you feel that you would want our viewers or listeners to know about either your statue vacation or maybe about Petersfield or Manitoba in general? Anything that you wanted to share with everybody?
Well, not really. I just really would like to encourage people to stay local. Manitoba is a beautiful place, and Petersfield is a great great town to be in. And it's deceiving too because you drive down Highway number 9 and it looks like there's nothing there. You have to drive off of the highway. You just turn off the highway and then there's lots of homes, all the creeks, the store, the garage, and all that stuff is there. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Good. That's a good point. Yeah, because people would just drive straight down through 9 and not think of taking just a quick detour just to see a few things. So that's kind of, yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. We certainly appreciate it. Red River North Tourism is very appreciative to everybody who is giving their time for the showcases. And we want to just make sure that people from near and far are able to find us and come out and visit us here in the Red River North, because we have everything that anybody could want to spend some time looking through and seeing. So it's certainly a good stop and look-see for everyone to spend some time during the summer, because I think we might be having to stay home again this year. So it's a good time to check everything out. So great. Well, thank you very much. And we'll look forward to maybe seeing you in Petersfield.
You're welcome. Thank you.